Can't stop you feeling me. I hope you're feeling me. You're feeling me. I hope you're feeling me. You're feeling me. I hope you're feeling me. You're feeling me. I can't stop you feeling me. I hope you're feeling me. You're feeling me. You're feeling me. You're feeling me. I hope you're feeling me. You're feeling. I can't stop. I can't stop. I can't stop.
Say what you want, say what you want, say what you want. Say what you want, say what you want, say what you want. Say what you want, say what you want, say what you want. Say what you want, say what you want, say what you want.
Who's gonna save me? Who's gonna save me? Who's gonna save me? Who's gonna save me? Who's gonna save me?
Say what you want, say what you want. Say what you want, say what you want, say what you want. Say what you want, say what you want, say what you want. Say what you want, say what you want, say what you want.
Who's gonna save me? Who's gonna save me? Who's gonna save me? Who's gonna save me? Who's gonna save me?
Hello everyone, and welcome to a new BetaCast, the number 6. So you can count them with two ends now, not only one. So basically, let's start. Today we have three really interesting individuals. I'll let them introduce themselves in a bit. Let me just do a small reminder to all of you guys that are joining us right now to leave a like and subscribe to our channel. Support this podcast because we have a lot of effort into making them live just for you guys to interact with these amazing and really interesting guests. So, by saying this, start by introducing our guests. I'll let them introduce this week themselves. Let's start with Allan Costa, that is the co-founder at AAA Innovation. Allan, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Allan Costa, co-founder of AAA Innovation, is an innovation platform in Brazil. Besides that, I have a lot of interesting things going on. I am a mentor and an angel investor in dozens of startups. I work as an innovation director in a cybersecurity company, and during the last 20 or 25 years of my professional life, innovation had been my day-to-day activity, even before innovation becomes some sort of fashion thing in the business world.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you again. Celso Ienaga, Dextron Management Consulting. Please introduce yourself.
Well, management consulting firm, well, the managing partner. From the last year, maybe 20 to 25 years, I have been very much involved in innovation. I'm an investor too, mentor of a different type of startups in different segments based on investment thesis that we have been developing. And I've been inventor in some sense already. Some patents are being developed by discoveries that I have made in my life. And even the company itself that I have been managing for the last 25 years have been from the start a startup. So create these kind of things. And I'm a, let's say, board member for the last more than 10 years. I'm now around 20 to 22 as a board member of different companies in Brazil and outside Brazil, listed in some companies, let's say, investments from the company listed in NASDAQ too. So I'm very much involved in innovation issues, discuss it at the board level.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Really interesting. And now, Renata Ramalhosa, the co-founder and CEO at BetaCast Brazil. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for doing this with the Brazilian guests. So as you say, I'm the co-founder and CEO of BetaCast Brazil. BetaCast decided to move to Brazil last year, at the end of last year. Although I was living in São Paulo for the past almost 5 years, I was doing something completely different. I was working for the UK diplomatic service, and that was the reason why I came to Brazil. We did a lot of stuff on innovation. But all this journey with BetaCast in Brazil has been a really amazing journey. So we do corporate innovation, we do acceleration, and I will explain a bit more throughout the talk. But basically, there's been a fast track learning journey on innovation for me. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And like you all can see, we have really three interesting guests today, and we're going to discuss innovation. So let me first start by asking you, given your experience, and we have a lot of experience right now on this call, what would you think this crisis will affect, or how do you think this crisis will affect the future of innovation? So I don't know, Celso, you want to go first here?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me put it in this way for everybody. In taking the perspective of a board of directors in the large companies, or even in the startup companies that I'm a member, I think this moment, right now, the moment of COVID-19 that we are living now, I think we are now very much more pragmatic in terms of innovation. So most of the time I have in the past, and it means 3 months ago, just 3 months ago, innovation was a thing that was just good discussions, investment huge, everybody was thinking about the future. But after the moment now of the crisis now became very much more pragmatic. So in that sense, as we are moving from the normal to new normal and the next normal, because it's going to be after the coronavirus, the next normal, I think we're going to have this kind of a more pragmatic approach. What means that some efforts in introducing innovation needs to go straight to what kind of value you are going to add to my business or the future business. How it is going to really impact and create concrete value for the next process, or prepare the company itself to capture the next value in this new post-coronavirus scenario. So I think these kind of discussions are on place, on the table in the most of the boards I'm being.
Oh, let me just make you a follow-up question. Do you think that the startups and so on and the ecosystem is thinking about the innovation right now, or well, with this new normal, or with the new normal after this? How do you think they are positioning themselves?
I think we are just in this between, and most of the board's members and even an investor as just was so shaken by the impact of it in this crisis that stuck it. So what I'm going to do now, and most of the time is just save the cash. We need to do something to survive. But I think the companies that is going to survive start to think at the board level, say, what is going to be next? The next is going to be the real kind of a battle. And the next is going to be in 10 years. It's going to be in 3 months. We changed the word in 3 months. The whole word stopped in 3 months. We're going to change in next 3 months. So the next normal is just ahead of us in 3 months. If you don't think how you are going to be prepared for the next, probably you are going to not take this opportunity to grow and create a new, eventually, industry in this new reality.
Thank you. Thank you. Allan, do you want to give your opinion here?
Well, I mostly have a very similar vision of the one that Celso just presented to us. I do believe that the crisis is a huge motivation for innovation. If you look at the story of Uber and Airbnb, classical examples, for example, they grow up in the middle of the crisis because people lost their jobs in the United States. The recession had arrived and people had cars that had no use at the garage and rooms, vacant rooms that they could use to rent to other people. So this changed the behavior of the people that started looking as a good thing, taking a ride with someone they didn't know and taking a room at the home of someone they didn't know. Before the crisis, people wouldn't think about that. So I believe that the moment that you're living is going to promote a lot of changes in the behavior, in the habits, and in the patterns of how people buy things, how people consume things. I believe this is going to be a huge field, a huge green field of opportunities for startups. And I also agree with Celso when he said that, of course, the startups have to think about how to survive during the crisis. And well, the crisis is also creates a huge impact on how the money flows to startups. Because on the months before the crisis, we had seen flows of money that sometimes were very hard to justify. That I don't believe it's going to happen anymore. This doesn't mean the money is not going to still flow into the startups. There is money for startups, but the investors are going to become much more criterious about how to put this money on the startups. So, as we used to say, I'm a motorcyclist. I travel around the world on a motorcycle. And when we are on a motorcycle, we learn that when you're going to take a turn, you never look into the turn. You look after the turn. You know, you see the future point where you want to go and not where you are. That's what the startups should start doing right now. Because if we start trying to pay attention on where you're going to right now, we're going to be very well positioned when the crisis is finished.
That's a really good example that you just make right there. So thank you for that. And now, Renata, you want to give us your opinion? Because here's the thing. It's all about innovation in our country. And just to tell Allah, BetaI was also a company that was born during a crisis. So that's kind of funny when you said that. So please give us your opinion.
So I think, I mean, obviously what both Celso and Allan said, I'm very aligned to that. I think organizations had to react very quickly to this crisis and innovate, in fact, very quickly. Suddenly you had to digitalize your business, you had to put all your staff working remotely. We had to think about new products to go to the market that could better fit the needs of the moment, and that really created innovation as a need and not just as an experience or as something that could change my culture in my company or something that was the marketing that could do. And that is really important because that really brought innovation into the center of the debate. Now, I strongly agree with what Celso says in terms of the present, the middle term, and then the future, and what innovation will play in both of these roles. So one of the things is I think that business areas in particular will want innovation to come up with very rapid solutions for their challenges. And I think that we companies that do innovation, we need to think about that. I think the other point is that CEOs and board members and leaders are now thinking that this is just probably the first global crisis that we are living. But then we have others. We have global warming. We have other related sustainable development challenges that probably now become more aware to the leaders of this world. So, and that I think will bring innovation again into the center of debate, because me as a company, as a CEO of a company, I want to be prepared. I want to be prepared for the next COVID-19 or for the next global crisis. And startups, and now going back and bring the startups as really crucial as part of the ecosystem, need to start thinking about that, not just as a short-term solution for a business area, but also what are going to be the next possible global challenges that I need to be there to be able to support corporates and organizations more widely to respond. So, obviously, BetaE has just relaunched a new brand, and it's called BetaE Collaborative Innovation, because we believe that, especially for global challenges, we can only do that in a collaborative way. And COVID is very interesting to see how companies are working together to tackle the COVID challenge and problem. And I strongly believe that only with collaboration, we will be able to overcome global challenges and other challenges that have until now been seen as, competitive one, that could bring your competitive advantage, when in fact, that will no longer matter when all the world is inside of the same crisis.
So should we think about different innovation from the future? When, like Renata was saying, and we need to prepare for the next crisis. So this is kind of a follow-up question. I think that we should develop these tools in our company to tackle the next crisis. And if so, what kind of tools? Where do you think that we go from here? Celso.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I think we need to consider different approach and different tools. I believe so much on that in my perspective, we need to change even the tools. We think the concept of old tools, like the Pareto principle. Yeah. I just want to launch the new Pareto principle. This means 80% of the results in 20% of the time. So what means that you need to be very much accurate to be effective in accurate and very much small time of responsiveness that you need to do all the things. So you need to go straight to the essence of the things to do. This is the essential thing that I need to do. And this is going to create 80% of the impact in 20% of the time. And tools, techniques, and frameworks that can help us to do that is going to be the next kind of a challenge that is needs to be incorporated in the companies itself. Just to take a jump into the before the questions and put this in place means that the boards and even the companies have to take from even from startups new type of a mindset. And eventually what is difficult, and I believe that is post-coronavirus is going to be necessary, is that this kind of a tool, this kind of a mindset needs not only coming from us that are living now, came from the past, all the experience. I think we need to bring to the table in a collaborative way people from the future. And this is a manifest, a global manifest that I'm trying to put in place, that how we can ask for the future, save us. Ask the future generation. Bring the future to save us in the present, so they can help us to take this kind of a future vision to the reality. And this is much more important. If it's in the startup or in the board, we need to bring the future. Future, save us. Bring your tools, bring your vision. It's going to save us, because maybe we are not capable now to see a different kind of a solution. So the mindset is a new mindset. So this is the things that I think.
Thank you. Really inspiring. I also completely agree. Should the future generations should have more impact in, because they have all of the creativity and the energy on their side, and they will definitely add value in any ecosystem. So, Allan, what do you think about the tools of the future? And also, let me make you kind of a follow-up point, because when Celso was speaking, I think that also companies are, because we have a lot of companies that work with innovation, but we also have some companies that are a little bit skeptic about this topic. What can you say to them? And how can we change this?
Okay, I'll start for the follow-on question. I do believe that the moment that we're living right now speaks for itself. These companies that sees innovation as something, very far away or are skeptical about it. Well, I don't believe there is a way to overpass the moment that we're living if we don't do it in an innovative way. The mindset that brought us here definitely will not take us out of here. And this allows me to connect with the answer of the first question. I do believe that the most important tool that companies are going to learn how to use in order to become more innovative after the crisis or even during the crisis is a very old tool that we've known for a lot of time right now. This tool is the brain. It's all about mentality. We spent the last couple of years thinking about innovation as a tech thing. Innovation is not about tech. Innovation is about people. It's about mindset. It's about how do we see the world and how do we see ourselves in our companies, in our business, within the needs that the world has. And as we spoke before, the needs are changing. The new normal that we are talking about right now, it's going to be a new normal with different kinds of behaviors and different kinds of needs. So I do believe that we are going to implement new paradigms when we think about technology, because the world is going to be a different world. We are going to move from tech to people, as I've said before. We're going to move from mass markets to mass personalization, because people are learning how good it is to consume things in my house. We used to think that this is terrible. And when I look at my mother, for example, an 80 years old lady that had never used the internet or the telephone to buy anything, and now she's consuming using the internet and using the telephone. So people are learning that they can be seen as one. And this will bring lots of challenges to many companies. I do believe we're going to have to change from a mentality of abundance of resources that we experienced for the last 5 or 6 years, where we lived a bull market, everything going up, 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 like there is no tomorrow. We just go up, that, and up. Now we're going to think about a world where we have abundance of time, because we are changing the way we work. I was speaking in an earlier meeting today of people from my company in Sao Paulo that are becoming more productive because they're working at home. And it's easy to understand why this happened. Those people used to spend 2 to 3 hours in the traffic. When they start working at home, they see that this time can be used in a more productive, efficient, and pleasant way. They have more time to work. They have more time with their family. They have more time, to consume things that they didn't consume before. So it's not more about abundance of resources. It's about a relative abundance of time that we're going to think about how to capture in order to make our startups grow.
Exactly, and this also builds an entire new business model for the companies to approach. And the time that people have, they will spend that time doing something, probably online, because we are all connected. So this time could be learn new skills. Because I am on acceleration on Beta, a lot of people speak with me. Where can I find information to learn new skills, learn a new language, learn how to code, and all of this just proves exactly what you are saying. So Renata, in Beta, we are developing some nice tools to
Very
deliver
nice.
some awesome product. So give us your opinion.
So very nice tool. So going back to the collaborative approach, which is something that I think we all in BetaE are really passionate about. I think when you start looking about some of your challenges, or if you are at the board, I mean, let's say you are at the board of management and you need to make a decision, I think you will probably start questioning whether that decision is the right one, and whether you need to bring your head of innovation to sort of challenging you, or you need to bring your partner, innovation partner, to kind of challenge the board. Why are you thinking in the same sort of business as usual as you were in the past? So the tools will be developed during this period of adaptation. I mean, obviously, we in BetaE, we are developing some, basically, faster ones that can respond quicker to some of the challenges that organizations are having, but also to start prompting the question of why, if I'm a large company that is highly dependent on my supply chain, or my, sort of the selling points around the country that probably are not digitalized, and therefore I cannot bring my product to the final consumer because I do not have a B2C, sort of business model. How am I going to do this? I mean, how am I going to actually support my ecosystem to actually be able to to sell what I'm producing in my industry? And I think that if we can create, and we in BetaE, we are creating programs that can bring together, all companies that need to develop links and better solutions for their supply chain members that will support the company itself. So I'll give you an example. I mean, in Brazil, obviously the small businesses are suffering a lot. And one thing is a large company that obviously can have a good cash flow that can support this crisis, but small businesses, they don't have. I mean, they obviously have their cash flow for 7 days or something, and therefore they probably will disappear in 1 week or 2 weeks. So the large companies that are dependent on these selling points need to support them in some way. And we thought about that as a matter of principle, and we developed a program called Varejo 20.0 or 20.0, which exactly allows large companies that have this value chain dependent to sell their products to support those smaller businesses. And that is collaborative innovation, and that is the way that large companies can really support other companies that are part of their value chain. And I think, to me, that's the way to do it. I mean, we see examples nowadays in Brazil, Magazine Luiza doing a marketplace, exactly because they are seeing the opportunity to bring other small businesses in, supporting them, in a sort of solidarity approach, but also reinforcing their own business. Or you see, Ambev together with the Einstein Group and others building an hospital. I mean, in 1 month, they built an hospital. So
Yeah.
they worked together very quickly and they did something together. They innovate together. And I think that sort of open mind in a highly competitive world is quite challenging to change, but COVID has probably done that. And I think we need to surf this wave and really make sure that we show the benefits of collaborative innovation, of collaboration as a whole, because I think it's by that way that we'll be able to survive this really, quite, radical crisis, I guess. I'm not sure whether I'm fully aligned with Allan when he says that it's good to be at home. I have to say that I would like to go out now. I feel we need to sort of interact. I mean, we are, it's amazing how productive we are at home. But at the same time, socialization is something that is really important. And I think this crisis, via Zoom or via any other sort of remote tool, is not the same. Yeah. And I think that's an innovation that is probably needed.
Let me just tell you two things. First thing is I'll go definitely to Brazil to do a podcast live with you three. I'll volunteer. And the second thing is every time that you say better products, I hear better products, and I really like that. So maybe we'll use that. So let's go with the questions. We already have a lot of questions on the chat. Let's go with the question from Mafalda Freitas. So I will cite it. On the corporate side and thinking about the future, do you feel that corporates are getting more open to collaborative innovation, or do you think they still see is a risky or not successful, and or not successful? So who wants to answer to Mafalda? Maybe Celso, do you want to?
Oh, yep. I think in this right moment, there's two types of companies. One is thinking about how it is going to survive now, and this is important, I understand. But some companies are really taking the perspective of if we are going to be prepared for the next tsunami and the crisis that is going to happen for sure, it is going to, the frequency is going to go up and up, and I think it's going to happen very frequent from now on. It's not because of the event of the change of the things, but as we are flowing, the time is flowing very fast and the changes are happening, this is going to happen more frequently. So we need to be prepared. And the question is, we are going to survive this, but are we prepared for the next? If you are not prepared for the next, it's just a matter of things that we are doing now, but we're not going to survive for the next one. So I think companies now, in the corporate level, they are thinking about what is going to be the next. And from this perspective, the collaboration kind of approach that Renata mentioned is fundamental. What means that the corporations are just thinking about not only in their company, but not only in the value chain, but they are thinking about the whole ecosystem as a total. In most of the case, companies, giant companies, are first because of the coronavirus. Most of giant companies return to startup condition. Is just reset, start over again. And we need to think about whole ecosystem now in a different perspective. In that point, I think they start to think how we need to invest, what kind of money, as we have a short money, what kind of things we need to do now to recreate the business at a total, but considering now the ecosystems. And innovation is part of the equation, because we need to think in a different way. We need to consider startups, we need to consider people inside the company, partners, everyone, eventually the competitors come into this equation to think about how we are going to, and the risk, the point that you mentioned, is one of the things that needs to be changed. And this is a discussions that we have at the board, how we change from risk mitigation mindset to risk sharing. As we share the risk with everybody in the ecosystem, let's say the systemic risk go down and the cost of all the transactions go down. So the barriers disappear. So eventually in that point, we start to have more efficient, more collaborative. So based on trust, do you remember the word trust? So this is the time to come back. This simple word, trust, have purpose, things like that is going to come up. And this is a board discussions right now, because this is the only way to justify it to be prepared for the next company for the future. And there is only on one way. There's no two ways.
Thank you, thank you. So, Allan, do you think that companies are seeing after the curve, or they are not seeing the curve at all, or they should have a different approach? What do you think about all of this?
Yeah, I do believe that many companies are going, to go straight through the curve because they're, you know, only being able to see the curve. I once again, I go in the same line that Celso has gone. I do believe that the coronavirus forced a lot of large companies and even the small and medium companies to do the digital transformation that we've been talking about for a long time. We used to talk about digital transformation, but very few people were doing it. So coronavirus arrived, people had to go home office, and digital transformation in a very rudimentary way, in a very elementary way, had to be done. So we were obligated to do it. I do believe that the after coronavirus, it's going to have a similar effect towards collaboration. Large companies, once again, for the last couple of years, have invested a lot of money in initiatives to get closer to startup ecosystems. Why? Because startup ecosystems are built around collaboration. And large companies never knew how to do it because they grow up and became big and strong, learning that I have to fight with my competitors. We have to kill each other. That's the law of the market. But the startups turned that upside down. After the coronavirus, there is only one way: collaborate. Why? Because the world has changed. We've been talking about this for 40 minutes now here in this episode of the podcast. People are learning that they are not just part of the world; they are guardians of the world, and there is a huge difference in these two mindsets. If I'm just part of the world, well, the world just goes on, and I'm a passenger on it. If I am one of the guardians of this world, I am a protagonist in everything that happens into this world. And connecting this with the reality where we're going to have less resources, where we're going to have scarcity of resources, there is only one way to get prosperity into this new normal. It's to collaborate.
Thank you. Renata, let me ask you these questions because if you want to add something to these opinions, and let me just ask you this question that is on the chat, and I'm going to ask you because I don't want to hear the opinion of everyone. We're talking about this before the podcast starts. How would you evaluate the Brazilian government's preparedness to implement social innovation? What are the barriers and how to tackle them? So,
That's a challenging one. The Brazilian government, you mean the Brazilian government? Right. So I mean, some examples. I'm going to focus more on the positives, if that's okay. And I think that there has been a number of good signs from Brazil as a whole. And I would not say the government. I'll give some examples from the government, which I think were extremely positive, but from Brazil as a whole. I think the governors in particular responded really rapidly to the crisis and came up with really quick measures for the citizens, to sort of reduce numbers in the health system. And I thought that was positive. In terms of policies, I was really surprised why suddenly telemedicine became a norm, and suddenly Brazil, that is considered to be a highly bureaucratic country, was able to, in a very short-term period of time, come up with a regulation that allowed health services to use telemedicine. And I think that again is another good example how these crises are motivating innovation, not just in corporates, but also government. And another example from government was how import taxes, for example, were immediately abandoned for products and services that were of needs to combat this coronavirus. So I thought that was extremely positive signs on the ability of governments to react when they need to. I think the other positive, not so much from the government, but from the society as a whole in Brazil, I'm seeing a lot of solidarity. I'm seeing a lot of companies and large corporates, families, giving back to the society, which is something, you know, very Anglo-Saxon, but not so much visible in countries like Brazil. And this crisis is really bringing that into a very positive ground, which I'm not seeing in other countries, for example. And that to me is something that I would like to highlight. You know, when you see a lot of families, companies to start to support the favelas, you know, the slums that obviously most of the Brazilian cities have quite a lot. And I think that is very positive. A lot of initiatives from all sorts of players on society to come up with calls for products to combat COVID, masks, people making, you know, all sorts of things that you can imagine. So I think actually the positive effects of this crisis in Brazil offsets some of the negative sounds that we hear from out there.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to add something here? Hello, Celso? Your microphone. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. I think the government itself have been doing things that I think it's important to be considered. We have now one of the things that was extraordinary too in the government level, taking only the positive, as Renata said, is we are now reaching to deliver to the poor people in the country, eventually about $120 per person per month, that they are delivering and getting to their cash in their account $120 in about a week for more than 15, 20, 30 million people in just 1 week or less than that. This is a kind of things that are extraordinary. People that have no account in bank, they receive a digital account. So you have no account, and now you have a digital account. Can you imagine? You can do this in 1 week and create all these and put the $120 in hands of people, millions, 10, 20, 30 million people receive that such amount of money and created such amount of digital accounts and deliver that. This is a kind of extraordinary kind of things that the innovation can do. Because if you go and ask for organization or even the government to open for each person one account and to put the money, it's impossible to do that in this kind of a time.
Yeah.
So I think this is a kind of extraordinary things that the innovation, an innovative kind of approach can do, and technology can help us.
Yeah. Hello. Question from Stealing Video. It's pretty common from the Brazilian companies to act focused on the short term, thanks to the regular country crisis. Is this way working now competitive advantage to get quicker results?
I do believe so. The main challenge when we talk about an economy and a political environment as Brazil, for example, the main innovation that we can build into a startup or a consolidated company is to transform the company in order to become crisis proof. How do we do that? Building structures and strategies and an agile structure that can adapt too fast, that it can go faster than the regulatory or political changes that we have in our environment.
And maybe maybe the future generations that Celso was saying could give.
Definitely. And I was going to connect with the former question to say that I do hope that the one positive change that we're going to have with the coronavirus, talking specifically about Brazil, it's that we're going to have a better set of politicians elected in the next elections. Because on one hand, we have this kind of innovative approach that Celso talked about that is amazing, millions of people with digital accounts with money in their accounts. But when you look when this money came from, we see that all this money came from the productive sector because everybody is doing a lot of sacrifices. But when some politicians try to pass on the Congress a law that reduced the income for the congressman or reduced the fund to pay for the political campaigns, nobody agreed with that in terms of our politicians. So it's quite easy to do, magic with other people's money. So we are saying that our political group in Brazil, most of them at least, has to be thrown away, please. So I really hope that this shows us as a population that we have to collaborate between ourselves in order to elect better politicians.
Exactly, and we see more and more people in the different sides of the spectrum in terms of their opinions, their politics, and so on. And if we all collaborate, there will be no such thing as
there is no us and them. There is just us.
Exactly. That's a really really good point. So, next question from Abdul Wish. Do you believe that corporates understand innovation as costs or investment in moments of crisis? Oh, Renata, tell us the feedback from working with them.
So in the past, maybe as a cost, now as sort of a needs, and the future as an investment, I think. Obviously this varies. You have companies that are extremely innovative and really have innovation as part of their culture. So, we cannot really generalize for all the companies that we deal with. But, the struggles that we as BetaE, for example, when we are really trying to bring some of our experience in terms of bringing innovation into a corporate, is really often seen as a cost. And the return on investment, because measuring impacts of innovation is not that easy. I think better we are developing a number of tools that will allow us to become better and better at that, but it's not something that you see immediately. I cannot assure you that I'm going to find the startup that is going to revolutionize your company. What I can assure you is that I have the right process that will allow you to go and find out the best options for you to choose to revolutionize your business. So what I think again this crisis brought was that mindset shift. So now you will see this as a need, and if it is a need, then it's equals to investment, and I hope that equation will change the way that companies, organizations, and the world as a whole sees innovation.
Yes,
Can I put it? Yeah, I think the change from cost to investment, I think the shock is right now, because as we put all these things in no company, I really doubt if there was any kind of a company, even the startups, but nobody was prepared for this shock from coronavirus. In about 2-3 months, everybody was just stuck. The world stopped in about 2 or 3 months, 3 weeks. We stopped the world and stopped all the things. And we have never thought about the possibility these kind of things can happen. So everybody just get to the point. Do you have in your formula, your experience, any kind of an answer to respond to this reality? There's no answer, because all the answer is just trying to save the cash, cut the cost, but it's not possible to do magic. So we get to the end of the limit of the traditional kind of a solution. This is the point that we are now. So we have get to hit the wall and we don't have the answers. And that's the point that the board start to think about, well, what kind of a new questions, other questions, different questions that we have never made to take out the company from this situation. Because all the questions that we have already done and all the situations we have experienced, we prepare for different kind of a crisis, but never to stop the word. Stop the word and let's check if you can do and all any kind of your experience solution can work on that. No. So now we need to invest to be prepared for the next one because we're going to have the next one. And that's the point that I think the paradigm and the mindset are on the table.
Yeah, and we are seeing more and more because startups can do it easily, pivoting their products to try to offer these solutions. I think this is a really good KPI or metric that shows exactly what you are saying. As a huge company, like Allan was saying, with a really strong corporation, cannot pivot their product that easily. So startups can be more agile. So this connection between them, between the corporates and the startups, can actually bring the solutions faster to these big builders. So let's go to the next question. Allan, one of the risks from Francisco Ribeiro, one of the risks of this call for building new products is that people might start creating for the sake of creating and skipping early research that ensures they are addressing real problems. How do you minimize that and try to create meaningful products and service during this time? This is a really interesting question because I was having a big discussion with a lot of people because everybody is creating solutions for the curve and nobody is creating solutions for after the curve. So
yeah, that's a huge risk actually because we were trained in the last couple of years to think about the problems that people have and to look for solutions for those problems. And the problem people have right now is how to face the crisis, how to face coronavirus. The problem with facing only this problem is that this problem is going to end. It can be sooner or it can be later, but it's going to end. So we get back once again to the need to change the mindset and the paradigms. We need to understand that the problems that people used to have and problems that people have right now are different from the problems that people are going to have in the near future. So we can ask, okay, so if the problem that people are going to have are different, how the hell can we see this problem right now? Well, the answer is we can't. That's why we need to establish a mindset of agility into the company. And this agility has to be intrinsically connected with the market and with the client. Because we're going to have to learn how to react to the slightest signal of change in the consumer behavior in order to be able to arrive first when these needs became a trend and more than a trend a reality. That's how I think I see the question.
Can I contribute on that? For the sake of example, in this reality now, I'm dealing with the issue of education. As you can see, because of the coronas, most of the students and the children are just homeschooling now. The homeschooling is going to be part of the reality for the future. In what means that all the education model needs to be changed. Even the professors who is teaching the student needs to change their position. But it is a new way of doing this. What I see now at the people around the Boston region, around the Harvard Business School, are doing different kind of things. And we are going to take two things, two perspectives. One is the classical education matters or subjects, and others are things that need to be preparing for the next generation competence. So going to the traditional subjects, let's take geometry. In the geometry, we professors start to think about to talk and teach how you measure square meters, the perimeters, and you bring to the people for the students. This is the number. So you take this number plus or multiply by, and you have the area or you have the perimeter of something. So you have a square and kind of things that you challenge the children just to teach them some maths to calculate the area or the perimeter. From the other perspective, there now professors say, go to your room. Go to your room and measure the area of your room, the perimeter of your room. And now you go to your kitchen and measure it. This is going to be much more practical, and the children can understand what means in real world a kind of things like that. And it was not being done.
Just to add something, Celso, with your opinion, I was reading a Reddit post exactly speaking about this topic. There was one teacher that went there and said, I am doing remote teaching for remote areas in Africa for like 10 years now, because there are a lot of remote areas in Africa that they just bring the iPad and so on, they put there, and the kids learn from there. And the professor was doing it for 10 years now, and he was actually teaching the other teachers his experience. So it was and it was really amazing, because it's exactly what you said. They use the tools that they have as an example to improve. Exactly. So I think I just to add this example, because I think that just confirms exactly what you're saying.
And from the other perspective, in the social emotional, how do you teach social emotional abilities for the children? And one of the experiments very fascinating was, children are just introducing their pets for the others. Why they love their pets, what the kind of feelings they have about their pets, and taking the experience from other children in a Zoom session like that. This is a kind of things that you can improve your social emotional ability through the internet. This is a kind of things that you can change your value proposition in the next normal. The education can be changed, but you need to have a different mindset from the professor, from those who teach or trying to improve the learning process. So this is a practical kind of example that is happening just now in Boston area and some efforts in the Stanford area. Around the world, this is a kind of things that I have been looking for, and let's grabbing some ideas.
And once again, if you allow me, this connects with the change in the needs of the population. As in the sake of example also, my daughter is 3 years old and she is having classes using Zoom. So can you imagine the kind of mindset that she is going to grow with? We all had to learn how to deal with this technology and how to be part of a digital class. She will grow up with this kind of thing being natural. It's just natural. It's just the way it is. So this is going to put a lot of pressure in the professor in the educational system. So everything that we have been discussing during the last years towards the end of the traditional educational models, but we were not very able to promote the change, we're going to have to do it right now, because the kids that are growing up in this kind of reality are going to demand this kind of change, and we're going to have no option instead of change. We cannot postpone this anymore.
It's exactly what Celso said. We did the 20% 20% of the work for it. Yeah, and
bring the future. Save us.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go for the next question. Renata, Leonardo said a great cast. Renata, people are enjoying.
What?
Renato Amaral Lopes said great cast, Renata. So Leonardo Amaral Lopes also said, I do agree, it will be a new future of work happening now. We are going to see CEOs building plus flexible teams, a blend of in-house plus independent professionals on demand. What do you think of that?
I don't know whether I fully understood the question, but how this new reality is changing the way we interact with each other.
Yeah.
Well, I think we were just saying that. I think it's changing quite dramatically, to be honest. I think suddenly, I speak for ourselves as a family, for example. I mean, suddenly within your four walls, you have education, you are working as an executive, you have to clean your house, you have to iron, you have to cook, suddenly you have to become all these highly productive person that, really doesn't have a lot of time to, to sort of invest in the wellness side of things. And I think that is really the challenge of this crisis: is how do you balance the things that you were used to do, like sports. And I know that it was amazing the way that all these organizations reacted to that. Pilates teachers on YouTube, yoga. You have an overload of offerings, which really is quite overwhelming. I mean, sometimes I think whether it would be better to hibernate for all this period, read all the books that you always wanted to read, and kind of come up with a different mindset, not being influenced by all this noise, and probably innovate in a different way. But I mean, what I think is that there are generations that are suffering quite a lot with this. I mean, one thing is talking about young generations, and I see again, my children starting homeschool 7 o'clock in the morning, sometimes up to 6. I mean, it's quite amazing the way that schools reacted to this. But you also have the older generations that really have a lot of fear. Most of the times are on their own because they cannot be close to their families, and that is an issue as well. I mean, they do not have a Zoom to talk to their families. They only have a kind of a basic telephone. So, or how do you deal with that segment of the society? Or how do you deal with the most vulnerable ones? I mean, which here in Brazil, we are trying to deal with. If you stop having someone to help you at home, what is going to happen with that person and with the family of that person? So, I mean, one thing is the future, but another thing is the present. And how do you take care as a society as a whole, bearing in mind that the tools available are not available for all?
So basically, Leonardo, just clarify, the question was about related to the innovations on how the company staff, from the company staff. Basically, he's asking about in-house employees versus independent.
I mean, I can comment very quickly on that. I think we were seeing already some organizations thinking and reflecting about talents more than employees. And I think that working remotely and this crisis is also showing that probably the future of the organizations is not having all these people working in the same office, but probably having, a sort of a map of talent that is needed to achieve the goals that are set by a company. And that I think is also going to be transformational. There will be a part that is going to be painful because, to be honest with you, probably there are companies that are seeing that, oh, actually, I don't need that department. There is no need for that. And others are seeing, oh my God, I need to reinforce this one. So I think it's quite clear that this crisis is also making visible some of the flaws that the past organizations were having.
Thank you. So,
just to add an additional perspective that most of the time we had out of our radar, but it's going to be a profound change. The leadership is going to be completely different than the leadership that we are used to see. Because when you have people working at home with remote teams working together, the competences and the abilities that a leader needed to have to deal with their team, it's useless. Because, for example, that kind of leader that is a friend of everyone and take everybody to take a drink after the work, and that is involvent and charismatic. It doesn't help to be charismatic leader when people are not seeing you and interacting with you. So the kind of competences and abilities is going to be hugely different, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on the leaders also.
That's a really, really, really good point. I totally. I haven't think about that. That's a really good point. So sorry, Celso, you want to add something?
No, that's in the morning. I just made this kind of a discussions about that, but the point was that I think there's the future bring us the thing, two things: governance and the structure of governance is going to be much more and more important. Second, management. Management is going to be on the table, on the bench for questioning, because I think robots and all the artificial intelligence, all these things are going to take the role of the management itself. Leadership is going to be the issue, the next one. But as Alan said, it's going to be different kind of competence. And can you imagine if you are leading, like Renata said, talent people? Let's lead 100 or eventually 200 people that are data scientists or almost genius. So you are going to be in front of that and say, you need to do that. You need to innovate today. This is your objective. They are going to see you make a huge smile and going to say, what? Do you want 50% of innovation, 10% of innovation? I can bring you one idea or two, or do you want most of my talent? So this kind of a question is going to be very much funny to be asked. So if you are really a leader, it's going to make a really difference in this new kind of a reality that we're going to be in front of. But there's one, let's say, dark side. People that are not prepared is going to be obsolete and be, let's say, considered out of the system. And this is a kind of thing that as a social economy, we need to consider. That's all.
Thank you. So, sorry about the other questions, but we don't have a lot of time. We need to be on schedule, so I'm just going to pick one question, and let's go for this final question. So, the question from Katia Pereira. I think it's a good question. Social innovation can happen top-down or bottom-up. In Brazil, bottom-up should be where the investment in social innovation should focus. Do you agree? Who wants to go first? I choose this one because I think it's really interesting topic.
Totally. It's all I have to say. Totally.
Celso.
I think the social innovation, from my perspective, is going to be the source of innovation. You know, when you go to the third sector, so you work with NGO, non-governmental organization, and the third sector, and I have the opportunity and the honor to work with the larger organizations in this sector. What I discovered is how much and how many extraordinary ideas, innovative, really innovative idea come from this level of the society. Can you imagine how they can survive with $100 per month? A family can survive. It's quite impossible, but they find ways to do that, survive, have TVs, have even cellular phones. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So if you go there, you are going to find a lot of innovative and show social innovative solutions that is going to be important to bring everybody to the new standard. What means that our responsibility as the board or as investor or as a leader in the government or in the private sector is how we can invest money to bring these kind of innovation at that level for whole society. So we are going to improve the level of life of everybody. So this is going to be, go there and see.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Let me just add, because on Beta we also have a program in Angola called Lispa, and I have the pleasure to work with some of that startups, and yeah, like they're solving problems in a way that I only there it will work. It's like it's absolutely amazing, and exactly what you said. They have low wages, and they were telling me about this woman that resells stuff in the streets. And they are building an entire business model around them. But then they found out that none of them have bank accounts. So they need to tackle that problem first. And how creative they are. The way they say that they bring innovation. No, like this is exactly what you are saying. at its best, where the level is high. And Renata, you see that every day with the startups.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I always remember this really, the amazing book and talk by Mohamed Ali that he said that just imagine if all the people in the world could bring their talents to the service of the society. I mean, if the world could give opportunity to all these brains, to all these talents, what a wonderful world it will be. But I also would like to say that I think corporates and organizations as a whole, I mean, impact investment is becoming, in Brazil is quite impressive, the number of funds that are coming, the number of startups related to impact that are coming, and most of them will be inspired by that bottom-up approach. And I think that if we can invest more and more in that segment, I think that would be amazing. So I'm really confident that Brazil can play a leading role in that area. There's all the ingredients to do so.
Thank you. So, thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure. It's definitely one of the podcasts. And you can go watch. I never said this. It's really true that I really enjoy it. Your experience and your opinion is really great, and I hope that people on their houses using technology, because this is a new thing also. I hope they enjoy it as much as I did. And thank you so much to Celso, Allan, and Renata for taking the time to come here and share this. And to all of you back in your homes, just remember to like and subscribe, like any other YouTuber will tell you. Don't forget that. It's really important to support the channel and support this new way of bringing information to your houses. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.